We begin tonight with news that's sending shockwaves throughout the political world. Steve Bannon, a lightning rod for critics of the Trump administration, is leaving his post as the president's chief strategist. Mr. Bannon spoke to the Weekly Standard today about his departure, saying, quote, "The Trump presidency that we fought for and won is over. We still have a huge movement, and we will make something of this Trump presidency. But that presidency is over. It'll be something else. And there will be all kinds of fights, and there will be good days and bad days, but that presidency is over." Some really strong words there from Mr. Bannon. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts joins us now with the inside story. John?
Jesse, good evening to you. There's some thought among people like Steve Bannon and others, a lot of his acolytes, that Democrats are now in control of what the president hears here at the White House. As for Steve Bannon himself, he was back at work today at Breitbart. Employees there tweeting out that he has returned to his position as the executive chairman, even chairing the afternoon editorial meeting today. And also word that Bannon plans to go on the warpath against opponents of President Trump in Congress, in the media, and in corporate America, and against what Bannon refers to as globalists within the White House. That would be people like Gary Cohn, who he was very critical of in that American Prospect article earlier this week, Jared Kushner, H.R. McMaster, and Steven Mnuchin. In some ways, Bannon is now unchained from the constraints of the White House that sort of had him pinned down, and now is free to go out and do whatever he wants. Now, what's the reason why Bannon is gone? You see that cover of the Time magazine article from back this spring. The president was upset that it looked like Bannon was the real power behind the throne here at the White House. There was also the book Devil's Bargain, in which Bannon was portrayed as the rocket that President Trump rode all the way to the presidency. There was some talk back in July that Bannon may be leaving at the same time White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus was, but I'm told by sources who are in the know here at the White House that Bannon tendered his resignation to the president on August the 7th. Sources close to Bannon say the deal was that his resignation and departure from the White House was going to be announced at the beginning of this week, but that all of the events in relation to Charlottesville and the aftermath of that, Jesse, pushed that timetable back some. What's murky in all of this is what role John Kelly played, because it looked like Bannon had already tendered his resignation, but then we were told that Kelly was evaluating his position here at the White House. Kelly, I think, was the one who ultimately made the decision. You saw that statement from the White House saying that the Chief of Staff, John Kelly, and Steve Bannon together agreed that today would be Bannon's last day. What's also a little bit murky, foggy if you will, is what role this article in the American Prospect played in Bannon's departure. A lot of people here at the White House were very upset by it, thinking that you can't contradict the president on items like North Korea. You can't say the things you did about some of the people closest to the president, like Gary Cohn, without it having repercussions. But then Bannon, for all intents and purposes, was already out because, as we were told, he tendered his resignation. So it may have been, Jesse, just kind of a massive exit interview where Steve Bannon got to air all of his grievances, particularly his concerns about trade with China, in a forum where he was sure that a lot of Democratic working people might see it. Jesse?
All right, John, thank you very much. So, Gutfeld, I think the understanding is now that the president has gotten rid of Reince and Spicer, some of the traditional political Republican people, and now he's gotten rid of Steve Bannon, who's more of the ideological, populist, nationalist type of person. He's surrounded himself by generals, his family, and some moderate Wall Street people. Is that how you see it?
I kind of see it as he unloaded Bannon as a way to feed the angry mob. He's the sacrificial lion, if you will. I'm skeptical of how evil he was painted. I'm always wary of the thought mob. And you know, a thought mob is when everybody's saying exactly the same thing. And it strikes me of the way that he was painted for 6 or 7 months is so irrational that it's likely wrong. So the White House lost a chief strategist. But the good news is cable news has gained a new talk show host. The question is, where is he going to go? It could be Bannon in the mooch. Could be morning drive time. I don't know.
I would love to see Bannon and the Mooch. That could last about as long as the Mooch did.
It has a nice ring to it.
It does. Bannon and the Mooch, morning drive time.
Is it morning or more of like a prime time?
I see morning.
I think it might have to be prime time because it could not be family oriented.
Well, what hour would it be?
Late night.
Does anybody know what hour?
Kennedy, let me ask you. Now that Bannon has gone back to Breitbart, supposedly, could he potentially be more effective there using Breitbart as a weapon, like he said he would be, to really hammer the president's opponents and push the president's agenda now totally unleashed?
Yeah, but I also think he might also push the president. There are a couple things here that are really interesting. Obviously, Steve Bannon saw what having an off-the-record conversation with the journalist can do. It gets you relieved of your post. Some said that, Bannon didn't necessarily want to quit. He wanted to be fired. It's better, I think, for his personal narrative. But what we've seen from Sean Spicer and Reince Priebus and even Anthony Scaramucci when they left the White House was, these very cordial post-mortem interviews where they say glowing things about the president. They talk about serving the country. And Bannon is like, he's finally someone who's spilling the beans. And he says this presidency is over. So, number one, he's willing to talk. He knows he has an outlet. He didn't have to give that conversation, which he knew was on the record. That means that he's got a lot more vitriol, a lot more ammunition, and now he's certainly got the platform.
Do you believe the presidency of Donald Trump is over as we know it? Because Bannon and the president were pretty ideologically aligned when it came to economic nationalism and things of that nature. What do you think?
Well, look, I think the media is going to have a field day with trying to square Bannon against President Trump. Anytime Bannon says something, it's going to be, a news cycle for the day. But I think there's an overemphasis on each individual within the Trump presidency. I mean, because what we've seen from the media continuously is, who has the strings of the Donald Trump, the puppet, right? And it's Kushner, it's Bannon, it's Priebus, it's whatever. But if you go
Bannon's
back,
saying he's the puppet master because if he's leaving and the presidency is over, he's saying I was the one in control.
But the point I'm making is he's not. You can go back and look at even just the campaign trail with President Trump. He went through 3 separate campaign managers. He defeated 16 candidates during that duration who had more money than him, who outperformed him in terms of on the ground, people that were more experienced than him. He defeated Hillary Clinton as well, who had 2 times the amount of money, 5 times the amount of staff, and he did that, meanwhile, with 3 different campaign managers. You can go back to his 1990 Playboy interview
with Steve Bannon and Kellyanne Conway. That's when the race really shifted to Trump's advantage, and that's where
defeating 16 candidates also is to your advantage.
Defeating 16 candidates doesn't mean anything unless you get the presidency.
You can go back to his 1990 interview with Playboy where he espouses a lot of the same principles and things that he is saying in this economic populism now, particularly on issues like trade. He trademarked Make America Great Again in 2012, 5 days after Romney.
Wait. So you read a Playboy article?
No, I only read it.
Nobody reads the Playboy article.
The only one.
I only read it because it had something to do with Trump
Let's
and
get
his
Juan in
viewpoint.
here. Juan, what do Democrats say about Bannon leaving? Are you guys celebrating in the streets?
No, Bannon was not a hero to Democrats. I mean, it's interesting if you talk to Democrats who knew him. For example, he called Robert Kuttner at the American Prospect. He wanted to talk to a Democrat, right? And what he got out there, something you touched on, is, a strong message to sort of working class Democrats that he stands with them and that he was all about fighting against the Chinese. Some people, though, inside the White House saw him as far too friendly to Russia and Putin and encouraging that aspect. But I think the inside fight here is what catches my attention. So you have people like Bannon, who was aligned with, let's say, Reince Priebus, and the whole nationalistic, we were in the campaign, we knew how to push the right buttons on immigration, even race and all the like. Now those people have been, it seems to me, total eclipse. You know what? Because now you see Jared Kushner right there, right, with Ivanka, and they're much more aligned with people like Dina Powell, right, and Gary Cohn, the whole Goldman Sachs Wall Street crowd. I don't know why you call them moderate. I think they're Wall Street people. What they want is less regulation, less taxes. That's the agenda.
More money.
Well, I'm
But I don't think
those are total eclipse of the heart.
Right.
I don't think those are the type of people that are going to pick fights with China. I don't think those are the type of people that are going to be hardliners on immigration.
No,
and I think that's what Steve Bannon was saying. Those people to him are more moderate.
Well, no, but they're more moderate in turn. I don't know, maybe in turn compared to Bannon, but not compared to the Democratic agenda. When you're asking about what Democrats think, Democrats, and I'm surprised, but many Trump supporters see these folks as part of that nationalist trend that they say you guys are going at. Bannon, on the other hand, saw them as globalists and saw them as people who were, in fact, ignoring the hardworking middle class in America.
Well, they're definitely part of the establishment.
But I will say this, that the establishment, Republicans, they're in a moment, too, because they're very angry at Trump right now. You know, I mean, Trump has taken on
When
McConnell.
are they not angry at Trump?
Well, no,
Everyone's angry at Trump.
because Trump is blaming Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, for the failure of his legislative agenda. He's taking on people like Jeff Flake. He's taking on McCain.
Yeah, well,
so where it goes now, I think that you have Breitbart take a really high place, right? Because Breitbart is where Bannon is going to say the Trump administration is over.
Kennedy, what would you like to respond to Juan with?
No, I think, you talk about where we've been and who's been a part of this administration and who has been relieved. Now I think we have to look at where we're going.
Right.
And I'm wondering, does Steve Bannon somehow flip on the president? Is there some bad blood here? And does he make things difficult in this Russia investigation?
I'm not so
what
sure
does he
Bannon
know?
is going to do that.
And what does he share with the special
I think
counsel?
The President and Steve Bannon will continue to talk, I would imagine. Do you think we're overplaying the whole advisor game right now, or do you think Trump is,
I think
man?
I think when you, in the context of what's been going on in the last 6 months, this is an ongoing thing. I try to remain optimistic. I'm giving this administration the benefit of the doubt because he's our president.
Yep.
What I'm worried about is that the media has gotten a hold of the thread of this sweater, and they're not going to let go until there's nothing left. So even when let's say he made this change as a way to say, hey, look, I listened to General Kelly, and we're gonna calm the waters, and we're gonna move forward. I don't think he's gonna change anybody's minds. They are out to get him. I think they're out to get him in an irrational, incorrect way. He has made mistakes, but they're expecting the wrong thing from Trump. He's not the kind of person that soothes a nation. He's a businessman. President Obama had the eloquence to soothe the nation. Donald Trump is a street fighter, and that's what you're seeing.
But what about conservative media? So what happens with conservative media? And I'm talking about not only Breitbart, but I'm talking about Drudge. I'm talking about the possibility that Bannon goes out and combines with, let's say, Robert Mercer, the conservative money man, and creates a new conservative channel, conservative blog.
There's a lot of talent out there.
Deals this week,
and the price is right.
Their...
All right, how is